Bears, Beets, Battlestar Galactica, Hunter Biden's laptop. So once again, I find myself in a situation where I wasn't planning on making a video today, and a buddy of mine that we're both taking this cognitive science class together sent this to me, and we've been kind of discussing the whole idea of like free will, and from a libertarian point of view, and the conceptualization of human reality, all this stuff. So anyway, I told him that I make these videos, and he sent me this clip. And if you had told me, or if you had asked me personally to somehow connect Phineas Gage to Hunter Biden, like, that would be an impossibility. You could hold a gun to my head. And I'm like, there is absolutely no connection between these two individuals. But guess what there is? And it's oh fuck, I forgot her name. Well, she's Dinesh D'Souza's daughter, and she seems to be following in his footsteps because it's like being a professional liar on the internet is unbelievably lucrative. And again, it's one of those situations, all I had to hear her say was like the first like 30 seconds that I stopped the video because I'm like, I've got to record this and post this. This is amazing. Now, I can't put this in like a smaller context. I don't have a Facebook profile. So for whatever reason, it comes out really distorted if I try to hold it in a window. So it has to be full screen. But I think you guys can see everything. Oh God, this is going to be so good. I can't wait. Let's go ahead and get into this.
Vermont day in 1848, a railroad construction demolitions expert named Phineas Gage suffered a freak accident that sent a 13-foot metal rod clean through his head. Miraculously, he survived and went on to live for another 6 years, but not without certain effects.
Okay, so far everything is true. I was actually quite shocked. I'm like, wow, she's actually citing a historically accurate circumstance. Like this situation, this person existed. So far everything is true. Let's continue.
Scientists determined that the accident destroyed about 11% of the part of Gage's brain that is called the frontal lobe. It is the frontal lobe that controls functions like decision-making, inhibition, language, empathy, and creativity.
This is not true. This is a gross generalization of different parts of the brain and how they, like, no one part of the brain controls one specific function in the body. It's very adaptive. It's very unique to each individual. Within both the gray and the white matter of the brain, there are associated areas with different decision making, but every person is unique because what information we're exposed to, how we process that, and how often that process is repeated in terms of like digesting, regurgitating, memory, discussion, exploration, whatever, is all very unique. And those different experiences change not only, I don't want to say the shape of the neuron, but how quickly it functions and how quickly the orbiting neurons around it function and support that process. Now, I'm not expecting people to understand what this means, but the basic idea is that when you start to learn to type, like, does anyone actually do that anymore? I think kids learn to type with their thumbs on tablets and phones now. But if you're old like me, you had to take a typing class in like middle school where you sat down and you went to a keyboard and you used your little pinky and you went A, S, 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 D, D, D. And you did these exercises over and over for like weeks on end, because how the brain learns something is by doing something over and over and over again. That could be a memory, it could be a physical skill, whatever it is. So whatever it is that you're doing, the more that you do it, the less resistance there is between the brain neuron and the muscle it's associated with, and the clearer the signal becomes, and then it becomes what we refer to often as second nature. So when you see someone who starts ballet when they're 5 years old, they don't know what they're doing, but the time that they're like 18, they're considered a professional because they've had so much time for their brain and the rest of their body with very specific movements to basically break down and digest it. That does not necessarily translate to anything else. And I can use my wife as an anecdotal experience. She was classically trained in ballet for, oh God, something like over 20 years. Like she actually got a scholarship on it to a Chicago, dance studio in Chicago, whose name eludes me at the moment. And even though she on stage is amazing and graceful in daily life, that doesn't translate to her not banging her shins into some coffee table 5 times a day. So the reason that I bring this up is that what she is saying is a gross generalization and is not accurate. And you're going to see in a minute, like, why I had to stop the video, and we'll continue on together in real time.
The damage to the part of the brain that controls his impulses turned Gage into an alcoholic. But more than that, he became surly, rude, and frequently made inappropriate sexual remarks. He became a total jerk. Modern research shows that people can experience similar symptoms, even without taking direct physical damage to the brain. As the life story of Hunter Biden...
This is where I stopped the video. I was like, I started laughing so hard at work. I had to stop the video. I haven't looked at anything past this so far. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is amazing bullshit, by the way. Like, obviously what she is saying and this woman's ethics are completely fucking corrupt or just non-existent. Like, this is purely just bullshit, but let's see what happens.
Shows it is possible to burn out the frontal lobe through the process of overindulgence.
What? Wait, what did she say? It is possible to burn out the frontal lobe through the process of and that's not even a Oh, sorry. It's possible to burn out the frontal lobe. Oh my fucking, that's so great. Oh my God. That's like a Monty Python skit. Burn out the frontal lobe.
It is possible to burn out the frontal lobe through the process of overindulgence. Drug abuse, overeating, pathological gambling, and sex addiction like prostitution or internet porn all cause severe damage to the frontal lobe over time. It doesn't take much to see that these are all very big problems that are ravaging the country today. Predatory pharmaceutical companies and open borders have pushed the abuse of both legal and illegal drugs to epidemic proportions. Just about all the other vices are facilitated to an unprecedented degree.
Oh my fucking God! She tied this into border security! Oh! Sorry! Oh my God, to go, oh fuck, to go, to go from Phineas Gage to Hunter Biden to internet porn to border security, holy shit, and now we're gonna get into internet and smartphones. Oh my God, this is fucking gold.
By the internet and smartphones. In other words, our modern conveniences, technology, and wealth give us access to great harms that are equal to their great benefits. And just as decadence destroyed Rome, we are well on the path to becoming another great but fallen and failed society. But it doesn't have to end this way. We do not need to enter a second dark age of lost knowledge and technology. The only path forward.
Lost knowledge? What has technology led to lost knowledge? Like, that could not be literally more paradoxical. Like, technology leads us to lost knowledge. Like, there is the access and information that any one individual has if they have a smartphone connected to an internet that isn't like Chinese or Russian, where it's basically, oh my God, every website is blocked. You have more direct access to historical information that anyone in human history has ever had. You don't have to go to a library that may or may not have the book on the specific topic you're looking for. You don't have to spend 45 minutes going through the Dewey Decimal System to see if the book is there. If it's not, you don't have to wait weeks to see if they can actually order for you and get it in. I mean, this idea, ironically, that she is utilizing for monetary purposes is just, oh my god, this is just grade A bullshit through and through. Oh fuck, this is
the only path of true progress that will allow our society to achieve even greater heights of intellectual and technological development is to re-embrace faith. Religion.
Oh fucking oh, sorry, let me, oh fuck. Religion is the only institution that can, wait, counteract what?
Religion is the only institution that can counteract the corrosive effects of increasingly pervasive excesses.
All the nuns and children who were raped by priests would disagree. All the women and children who were raped and mutilated and beheaded by jihadists would disagree. Fucking every person in America, specifically Americans who are black, who are, I mean, we could even just talk about African Americans who are slaves, that were what is it, 200 and like almost 250 years, it was like 246 years that America had slavery, where people used religion to justify slavery's existence. But no, tell me again how that is the antidote to the corrosive effects of internet porn.
And it is not simply because most religions advocate practices that increase self-control, such as fasting and prayer. Our religions also serve to constantly remind us of the dividing line between good and evil, and the eternal perils we face as a matter of daily life.
So this is going to get good. What I love about religion is that most people don't actually read the religious text that they claim to follow. So I was born and raised in a Christian family, and very early on, I was just like, I don't really believe, it just didn't seem feasible, right? The whole idea, whether it was my parents' way of kind of dictating it to me, I don't think they did a very good job. And obviously the churches we went to, I was just like, this isn't really making sense. So I kind of just like waffled around, didn't really care, until I think it was around like 19 or 20. My mom was going through this very weird, well, she goes through phases a lot, but she like changes her denomination of Christianity like every 4 or 5 years. She's off the beaten path. But anyway, I decided to actually read the Bible. It took me 2 years, but I read it like front to cover, and it was the most amazing experience of my life, because I'm like, there's, much like Tucker Carlson, there is no way any reasonable person can read this front to back and actually think that there is any substantive evidence or efficacy to this. I mean, it is so over the top ridiculous. And if you study world religions at all, you can literally see how not only Judaism, but Christ, the whole Christ story, piggybacks off of other stories that were already there. Like, I mean, the Herculean myth is number one. I mean, the Herculean myth and the Christ myth are like pretty much the same. They overlap on so many different things, like whether it's the half god, half man, being born into the world of man and not knowing that you're special until later on, and then you have to try to prove your worth, and then everyone in your society turns against you, and then they both descend into Hades, which again is actually the terminology used in the Old Testament, because hell only exists in the New Testament. It was Hades before, because again they have to take Roman ideology at the time, so on and so forth. And they both were in hell for 3 days, rose above it, and Hercules goes up to Mount Olympus and Jesus up to heaven, but basically they overcome death in the exact same manner around the exact same age, bringing salvation to anyone that believes in them. So to sit there and say that these books delineate good and evil, you would have to, like, I'm going to go on assumption because Dinesh D'Souza, I think, is like Christian or Catholic or something or whatever, but he goes by the Bible, and the Old Testament lays out 613 laws of God. Most of them, or actually all of those, are in Leviticus, and they show you they're very straightforward. I mean, they're just absolutely ridiculous. And then people will often refer to the Ten Commandments. There are 3 versions of the Ten Commandments. So, like, right there, that should probably give you a lot of red flags. 2 versions of the Ten Commandments are very similar. It just, where women are placed in terms of like their hierarchy of importance in relationship to men's property. And then the 3rd version, I believe, is, I think there are 2 in Exodus and 1 in Deuteronomy. That is just completely different. It has nothing to do with the other one. And this is a constant, I don't know if it's an oversight or whatever. Like, if you look at the Leningrad Codex, you look at the Codex Sinaiticus, you look at the King James Version, the New Testament, like, it doesn't matter what Bible or what Talmud you look at, like, the error is there in every single one. And I understand that, like, if you make an error and you're in the business of selling a religion, you don't want to admit the error, right? You don't want to admit the fallacy of the word of God via man, right? But it's one of those things where when people talk about this, they don't actually know what they're talking about. They're speaking in, like she did with the brain, general terms. She doesn't actually know what she's talking about, right? She's just putting this out here. So I'm saying this as a precursor that I cannot wait to see what she says next.
An immoral society is a fallen society. A godless society is a predatory and utilitarian society.
Oh, look at that. And we are going straight to the theocracy. We're going to bypass the Constitution. And what she is saying right now, and I want to be clear on this, this is the most anti-American shit that you can ever say. And people who sit there and say, like, oh, the Constitution was based on the Christian teachings in the Bible. No, it wasn't. It really wasn't. There is no overlap between the Constitution of the United States and really anything in the Bible. The Bible justifies slavery, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Actually, in that way, you could justify it, but slavery, no, it is. It was written into the Constitution. I might be wrong on that. I might have to revisit that, because I guess I was looking at the positive aspects, but I'm like, there is some overlap there as I think about it, that slavery was justified in the Bible, and it is justified in the Constitution for 246 years and another 100 years of segregation and discrimination. But I digress. When someone says that you have to believe in a specific God, the Constitution specifically cites that all men are created equal and they are allowed to whatever, I don't remember the exact wordage now. I'm so like amped up, but it's their God, not the God, not the Abrahamic God, not the Christian God, not whatever. It says their God. The whole point of that is to say that you have religious freedom. What she is stating now is that you don't have religious freedom, and that if you do, you're going to have a fallen society. This could not be more anti-American.
And a society that does not value self-control becomes warped and chaotic.
So the inference there is that America doesn't promote, is chaotic, and it doesn't promote self-regulation. So what's the point in having laws in general if that's not to regulate people's behavior?
For over a century now, the political left has been preaching the exact opposite. That progress cannot be made unless we jettison the superstitious and outdated ideological baggage of the past.
That I agree with.
But anyone who understands Western history and the Christian underpinnings of science itself...
The Christian underpinnings of science. Oh God, this is so good. Seriously, like this is why Monty Python doesn't exist anymore, because we have the internet.
Knows that this is the biggest lie of all. Far from propelling mankind into new levels of consciousness and understanding, atheism and secularism have wreaked unprecedented societal damage and are heirs to the most blood-soaked legacy in human history.
Oh, I cannot wait for this. Give it to me. Let's cite those sources.
Instead of learning from these tragic mistakes, the left is doubling down on aggressively anti-religious and anti
Wait a minute, she just kind of like skipped over her whole argument to justify her. Well, I mean, again, that's what most people do, right? They just like Dinesh D'Souza. Well, most talking heads in general, that are not well, even some journalists do this, but most talking heads, who have no journalistic background whatsoever, they have nothing on the line in terms of ethics or losing ad support, from major companies that obviously feed revenue into them. They don't actually have to worry about connecting the dots, and this is a beautiful segue into what I was going to make a video about this actually later this week, talking about how inference, people take inference as fact, and that's what she's trying to do right now. She's inferring all of these things, giving no examples of what she means, and then just continues on with this argument of one inference after another to get people who already probably, have some sort of confirmation bias. If you're on Dinesh D'Souza's Facebook, you're probably already enraptured in an echo chamber of your own beliefs. Oh man, this should be like a master class in bullshittery. So I don't know what these aggressively anti-religious and anti-Christian antics are. I'm an atheist. I have been an atheist, I think, pretty much my whole life. I have never seen a bill come across from any legislative wing, whether state or federal, that is trying to make religions illegal or somehow persecute you for being religious.
Christian tactics. Every leftist institution has become some sort of alternate mirror universe evil, opposite of what it's supposed to be. Hopefully they'll never get involved in refrigerator manufacturing, or we'll have to start grilling in our freezers. In the past few years, we discovered the hard way that when, in the name of fairness, we allow the left to make our institutions puritanically secular, those same institutions don't become a place of coexistence, but become unfettered monsters.
What the fuck is she talking about? What institutions? Like, which ones?
Government-enforced secularization of our institutions has worked towards the same bloody end as the atheistic experiment of communism.
So, hold on here. Since I've been alive, I've lived through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 presidencies so far. All of them say God bless America. All of them are, well, I don't know that I consider Trump a person of faith, but it's never mattered to me the religious ideology of a president, because we have checks and balances. Well, supposedly checks and balances in our system. Congress starts off with a prayer. Most people, when they are sworn into office, can choose whether or not they put their hand on the Bible. Most of them do. I would say I'm willing to bet at least 85. This is a conservative estimate on my side. 85 to 90% of our state and federal legislature identify as some sort of denomination of Christian. So how she is reaching for this, and honestly, it's kind of shocking. I'm sure there's probably going to be comments already that people are like just slathering over this because they don't take 5 seconds to think about it at all. But it's interesting that like there's literally nothing to support this so far. And she gives no examples because she has none.
The evidence shows conclusively that, for the left, progress is merely an affectation, whereas for religious conservatives, progress is a proven product of faith.
Where's the evidence? Oh fuck! I'm gonna date myself right here. Where's the beef?
In order to safeguard the progress we've made and continue to advance good over evil, we must turn to God and allow the power of his love and grace to transform us once again, but to also let it give us courage. By turning to God, we may revive science and rediscover God's ordered universe. There are
Revive science. She should call Elon Musk and tell him and Jeff Bezos that their Starlink, their space exploration, it's all bullshit. It's not real science. Call up every cell phone provider that, like, you know, your whole 5G network, that's not real science.
Still many new and astounding wonders which await us between the atoms and among the stars. We need to reclaim our sense of what Christian compassion really means.
Oh, so this is the first time she talks about, like, I figured it was Christianity because I'm like, being in America, most people are Christian, especially bullshitters on the internet that lean right, definitely Christian. This is the first time that she comes out and says it. Now, what she is saying, like, this is just like word salad over word salad. We already know, like, how subatomic particles not only react to each other, but based on that evidence, we already have quantum physics and we already have mathematical models that show what we're probably going to discover years down the road. Again, based on literally thousands of years of scientific progress.
We need to reject the truthless morass of relativism and center our society around an external and objective truth.
Oh, what would that truth be?
How can we ever hope to reestablish a fair system of justice if the only standard our judges accept are people's political beliefs?
Wow. Wow. That is an amazing inference. And that is sort of the right-wing victim card that has been... I'm trying to think of, like, how long they've touted this idea that I know Trump was kind of a flashpoint, you know, in 2015, but he didn't start it. You could make the argument that this goes back to Reconstruction, where, you know, obviously people in the South felt victimized because people who were no longer enslaved could vote, hold office, buy land, purchase goods. I mean, even through the civil rights era, they did that as well, that they felt victimized that black children would go to school with their white children. So I wonder if this is just kind of like is it just a continuation of that? Sorry, again, this wasn't a planned video. I'm just kind of riffing off of here. This is just amazing, though. I can't wait to read the comment section.
Most importantly, we need to embrace traditional morality. Without a time-tested sense of right and wrong, we will never form a sustainable social contract.
Without, let me make sure I get this right, because this is something you hear a lot from the right, and even from people like Clarence Thomas and Alito. Without a time-tested sense of right and wrong. So this is one thing that the right is doing with their originalists getting pumped out, you know, from Federalist Society, think tanks, where basically say that, like, the originalists basically say that the Constitution doesn't need to change. It needs to say exactly what it is. And basically what they want is they want the Bill of Rights and the Bill of Rights only. And that every amendment that came after it is basically just an opinion, something we don't really need. That's the whole contention of, like, Roe v. Wade, going into, I mean, even Brown versus the Board of Education. I mean, it's such a false and conflated way of looking at the justice system. Is somehow, like, if we were to look at historically our justice system to date, we have had slavery for longer in American history than we didn't. So, by her words, without a time tested sense of right or wrong, slavery was legal for longer than it's been illegal. That's the kind of what they want to say with like marriage, that marriage was between a man and a woman longer than it was between basically any two people that want to get married. So we should do away with that. And you notice when Clarence Thomas, when he talked about all these decisions, he listed all of them, but stopped right before he got to Loving, because Loving obviously allows him to marry his wife, who is a white woman. So always keep in mind that when people like this are spouting their bullshit, they're purposely crafting it around an idea that allows them to live the way they want to, but no one else. And everyone else should follow their way because they're good and everybody else is evil.
Wrong, we will never form a sustainable social contract. It's wrong to lie. It's wrong to kill. It's wrong to sell out your country or your country.
We have laws for each of those, by the way. She might want to take a look at them.
But why? Left-wingers today don't know. So
we don't? I'm a liberal, atheist, vegan who carries a gun. And I know exactly, and like there's a reason I know it's wrong to kill other people. That's why I don't take this and I start shooting people up in the middle of nowhere, or go to a, go to a fucking, what am I thinking? I can't even think of the word. I'm getting so like flustered. Like I don't walk into a school and start shooting kids simply because I'm a liberal, atheist, vegan who has a concealed carry permit. Like that's not a thing. Right? I'm not going to my next door neighbor because she's a black woman and she owns a beautiful house and I own a condo that's next to her and I feel victimized. So I'm going to go shoot her. Like, doesn't happen. Well, at least not for liberals.
We're operating in a vortex where there's no sturdy ground, at least for them. For us, there is. And we need to stick to it. The epiphany Tulsi Gabbard had on Tuesday when she announced her departure from the...
Tulsi, I mean, the points that she has hit in less than 6 minutes, oh my God, beautiful. She is going to be on Fox News so fast.
Democrat Party is very similar to the epiphany Republican voters had in 2016. That our representatives were malevolent grifters who sneered at their constituents.
And yet, they keep voting them in office. Like Mitch McConnell, who is being demonized right now, and rightfully so, don't get me wrong. That guy's a complete total shitbag. But he is the longest serving senator of the Republican Party in American history. If you don't like him, vote him out, but people won't. Partially because of gerrymandering, but mainly because they'd rather vote for a Republican who doesn't give a shit about them, but will talk shit about the Democrat, and they'll never vote Democrat.
In terms of reform, the GOP is at least 4 years ahead of her and has been undergoing a very long process of transformation, something that Joe Biden derides as MAGA Republicans and Carrie Lake calls the New Republican Party.
The New Republican Party, the one that failed an insurrection, and I believe there are over 800 of them being prosecuted right now by the Justice Department, several for seditious conspiracy, which is just literally one step below treason, and is, in our entire history, there's only been like a handful of seditious conspiracy cases because it is a very, very high bar to meet. But guess what? They did. And as they go higher up to, I don't know, Kash Patel, Mark Meadows, Lindsey Graham, Giuliani, and finally T-Rump, you're just going to see it more and more.
The only reason why the Democrats suddenly became the warmongers Gabbard decrees is because of this change in the Republican Party. We bucked the establishment, and the Democrats could no longer pretend to be against what they personally profited from. We have one man to thank, Donald Trump. He not only freed the Republican voter from the establishment narrative, he became the president who actually furthered the goals of Christian America.
Oh, and she ends on that. Donald Trump, the guy who has been he's been accused by over 35 women of sexual assault and rape. His own first wife, under oath, testified that he raped her, while his third wife was pregnant with their child. He had multiple affairs, one with Stormy Daniels, and then he did pay them off to stay quiet about these affairs. If you can somehow bend your warped sense of reality that in any way those actions exemplify the new Christian norm, it is honestly just more justification for my atheism, because I'm like, that's ridiculous. But to sit there and say that people who, and you know what, actually, it's actually kind of on par. Who's that lady who went to court because she was fired, that it was against her religious values in Kentucky or Tennessee? She was like like a big Karen, poofy hair, and she said it was against her religious belief to sign off on a marriage certificate between either two men or two women. I don't remember the details. This is a while ago. And the right touted her as like a Christian moral center for government officials. She lost her cases. She couldn't sue the government. She lost her job. And the ironic thing is she was already divorced at least once, maybe twice. So these sort of values, again, as they talk about them, they're going to sculpt them around their own lives so they can live however they want and justify it via the, good Christian values that they supposedly follow. But I mean, you can look at this any way you want to. Mitch McConnell, he's been divorced. Newt Gingrich, who famously started the investigation of Bill Clinton, who later had to recuse himself because he was having an extramarital affair while his wife was in the hospital going through chemo, fighting cancer. Good Christian values right there. I mean, the list just goes on. And this is nothing to say of the dehumanizing remarks the right constantly makes about the poorest of the world trying to come here, literally with nothing more than the clothes on their back, trying to come to America at a chance to work, which apparently they keep saying no one wants to work in America, but everybody's hiring and unemployment is at one of its lowest rates ever. But we're going to ignore that. The way they treat people who are hungry and desperate, I mean, how is that Christian? Like, Christ literally told you to love thy neighbor. Mexico or Canada would be our neighbors. Anyone next to you, your neighbors, as thyself. And I don't see Christians walking around flagging themselves, in this like sort of self-generative way in public. Oh man, this is amazing. This is what I mean about, it's just a constant, it's like a massive pipe flow of shit on social media, but Facebook is probably where it flows the most freely. And it's amazing to me. Oh, hold on. Let's can I get out of this? How do I?
One fateful Vermont day.
No, don't start again. How do we do this? Okay. The first comment, she speaks the truth. I'm sure she does in your eyes. Are there more? Can I see them? Oh yeah, here we go. Amen. As a senior citizen, I have witnessed great moral decay in our public institutions, as well as the personal lives of others in my community. We certainly need to turn towards GID. Oh, I wonder who GID is. I've never heard of GID before. And see his mercy and guidance. Wow, this GID sounds pretty cool. Before we endure the wrath of God. So GID must be the opposite of God. Um, Interesting. The left wing has certainly led us to a path of perdition and depravity. I don't think that's like how, like, again, I'm trying to figure out, is she talking about Larry Flint? Who's the other guy? Who's the Playboy guy? I can't figure out his name right away. But anyway, I'm like, is that it? Is she just talking about porn? Because I'm like, conservatives constantly, well, they throw out these websites against people who produce porn. They don't do it very often. They only do it during like election cycles, and then they drop it completely. And I think now, at least from what I've seen on a national stage, no one even talks about it because of how much money it generates and how much tax revenue it generates. And I'm sure there's got to be a lot of people out there who are just making, no pun intended, hand over fist money through porn sites. They're probably donating to GOP representatives who will lower their tax burden. We need to make America godly again. So true. We see it unfolding every day now. Kids in school, even on hard drugs and very skinny. Where? Oh, here we go. Back in Old Testament times, kingdoms failed until they turned back to God. Yeah, that worked really great for the Jews. God, like, does anyone own a history book? Until we turn back, we also will fail. We have the free, God, use a fucking comma. We have the freedom to vote. We need to look to men who fear God. So let's vote. Don't set on this. My God, these, like, I guess one of the things for me is that probably because of my Christian upbringing, I try not to judge people too harshly, but this is why Trump loves the poorly educated right here in the comment section. Oh my God. Our ancestors and country's founders knew that they were on ground that God had endowed with important natural resources. If that isn't the most fucked up way to justify slavery, if we would be able to, with his help, manage the evil that would come. I mean, that's why I'm not on Facebook. I can't deal with this kind of shit. This is so unbelievably disconnected from reality. But anyway, like I said, this is unscripted. I want I saw the video. Man, what that yeah, I'm just gonna leave you with that because that is really fucked